Shalom, shalom, and welcome. This is Yasharal, Living Orders and Commands. It is an end-time series to those who seek to do the will of the Almighty Father Yahuwah. For I believe we will all who seek to do His will, who are called by Him to fulfill the final exodus, to fulfill the days of witnessing martyrs for Yahushua's sake, to lift up Yahushua Mashiach. My brothers and sisters, we will come to know the importance of identifying a rise in the presence of the Spirit of Yahushua our Mashiach among us. With that said, if you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Symmanayah, and these are the words I am compelled to present before a people, an awakening nation, under the banner of Yasharal, led by the Spirit of Yahushua, who will come to be known as the children of obedience, the children of Yahuwah, who will fulfill the final exodus and or be martyrs for Yahushua's name. This segment is entitled Weathering Conditions Crumbling Structures. Let me say this, my brothers and sisters. It is not about fearing what man can do, but let us be mindful of why it is important to fear Yahuwah, to fear Yahuwah, the Almighty One, to fear Him, and incline our ears to His end-time prophecies, to His words. We are instructed to be mindful of the signs of the times, my brothers and sisters. Let us consider these words. Though they may not make sense to some of you, in the coming days they will. Weathering conditions, crumbling structures. End times have arrived. Many of us are aware that the beginning of end time prophecies related to birth pains have begun. Scriptures inform us of intense times to come and to be mindful of the signs of the times. I cannot stress this enough. By now, more and more people are becoming aware of the prolonged and widespread drought in major areas where our foods are grown. If you are in the United States, clearly by now you have faced some form of information regarding the widespread drought in California and possibly how it will affect the rest of the United States and the world. Many may even be aware of drought in other areas west of the Mississippi River in the United States. If not, it would be wise to search to become aware of what's unfolding regarding drought, widespread and prolonged drought that is occurring in other parts of the world as well. Brazil, South America's largest country, is also experiencing widespread and prolonged drought. Much of Latin America is beginning to face unprecedented drought as well. And what's sad that in our arrogance in the Western Hemisphere, we lack concern, we lack awareness regarding the intense drought and extreme conditions that are not in our backyard, that others are facing in the Middle East, Asia, Australia, and other parts of the world. Drought is all across the planet, in many areas of which our foods are grown. My brothers and sisters, it does not take a rocket scientist to discern when fresh water becomes scarce, as in severe droughts, for a long period of time, it will result in famine, major food shortages. Believe it or not, my brothers and sisters, many are neglecting the fact that food prices are rising due to dwindling supplies and inventories. Many have become desensitized or just plainly don't know that the root cause of increased food prices is impacted by inventories. In most of the industrialized world, people have become more focused on wealth, economics, or are just plain oblivious to what's unfolding. We ignore the greed, the neglect, the distractions that take our attention off of our sustainable resources. There is no secret the scriptures inform us of drought, famine, pest, and disease that will become widespread during end times, and many of us have no problems agreeing with such words. But who has given thought to the fallout of continuous, prolonged, and widespread drought? I want to bring to your attention some other conditions that will prove to erupt as a result of widespread drought. that will prove to wreak havoc on our communities like never before. I have entitled this segment, Weathering Conditions Crumbling Structures. Weathering conditions defines how the weather, the rain, the sun, the heat, how all the erratic weather patterns can affect structures of which we dwell, homes, buildings, roads, infrastructure. And I submit to you, my brothers and sisters, though we see so much on the news these days, though we even witness false flag events as some describe them, there's a manipulation that's going on to distract man from the growing concerns regarding drought, famine, pestilence, and disease. We are remiss. We are distracted. Many of us are unaware that most of our food originates from these areas that are experiencing prolonged and widespread drought. Many of us are unaware that the buildings we sleep in, the buildings we work in, the buildings, the roads, the railways, the infrastructures that we use that deliver our fresh water or electricity to us are eroding due to prolonged, widespread drought. My brothers and sisters, we have become so bombarded with the cares and vanities and the workings of evil that we fail to realize that all the details of what's necessary to fulfill end-time prophecies consist of prolonged drought. And in such droughts, we will see an erosion like never before of our buildings, our roadways, our infrastructures. There's a description for massive development that occurred as people fled the core cities. And as they fled the core cities, this description was called urban sprawl. Urban sprawl defined massive deployment of people from the urban cores, from the core major cities. Massive development where people fled to areas that are known as the suburbs or rural areas. Not only did people flee the city life, stores, businesses, and even factories moved out of the city areas. Populations became scattered and the sense of community deteriorated, resulting in class wars from the subtle to the most extreme. It was perceived for many years that the middle class and upper middle class, or those who were more financially better off than others, could afford moving to the suburbs or rural areas. It was perceived that they were more rich, that they were richer. And yes, it fueled class wars. As a result of most major cities across the planet, as a result of urban sprawl, the infrastructures became neglected. The water systems, the electrical grid, our roads, our streets, our buildings became neglected. In many cases, we've witnessed politicians or those who will head up governments seek to make a name for themselves by building something new or constructing and erecting bridges or roads in their name, neglecting the urban cores, neglecting the urban cities where most of the water filtration plants reside, where most of the electrical grids were built. Urban sprawl became known as a detriment in most recent years. For the last couple of decades, it was the thing that was most coveted. But recently, I read where people are beginning to move back and quote unquote reclaim the cities, reclaim the downtown. It is a term known as gentrification. Many of you, if you live anywhere near a major city, you have probably seen where the wealthy have become present by entering in and developing areas that were once dilapidated, neglected, and ignored. And they coming in and renovating them, and raising their property values, and forcing the working class, the working poor, the unemployed to move because they've increased the value of the properties. Gentrification. Look it up, my brothers and sisters. It is something that has begun. I also read recently where as sea levels are rising in Florida, that there are many wealthy individuals who are looking to recapture or purchase land closer inland to avoid the catastrophes that are coming and that have begun with sea level rising. This is occurring not only in Florida, but in California and other coastal plains where people see firsthand, people who live there see firsthand how sea level rising, how global warming and climate change is affecting their way of life and putting their expensive properties in jeopardies. My brothers and sisters, all too often, because it's not happening in our backyards, we do not pay much attention. But I assure you, as a result of neglect and greed, we are witnessing and will soon witness the deterioration of modern civilization as we know it. I have mentioned that the world will roll up like a scroll. The habitable places will roll up like a scroll. Soon and very soon, proof will come to be for upheaval, civil unrest, violence, destruction, and death will rise up. There will be battles of many types on many fronts. People will begin to scramble looking for food, fresh water, and a safe place to live. But I assure you, while we are asleep, as these conditions rise up, weathering conditions will soon prove that structures around us will crumble. Yes, our water systems is at the very verge of collapse. Our wastewater systems, our electrical grid, our roadways, our bridges, our railways are all antiquated and deteriorating rapidly. Greed, neglect, plain wickedness have proven to distract us, have caused us to not pay attention. The synagogue of Satan is manipulating the media to cause us to be entertained so that we pay no attention to what is unfolding. Yes, my brothers and sisters, there's this thing called weathering. It defines how weather conditions over time results in the degradation, the deterioration, the eroding of things over time. It is no secret that engineers and architects have designed our buildings and infrastructure. There is no secret that many of the designs were created, taking under consideration weather conditions. But who is aware that our buildings, our roadways, our water systems, our railways, our highways, our infrastructures were built based off of cyclical and predictable weather patterns? What is being hidden is that prolonged neglect of our infrastructure will soon cause a major collapse. Weather conditions have changed and become more erratic. They're not as cyclical as they once were. And as a result of that, it is accelerating the deterioration of our infrastructure and the buildings in which we dwell. Pray and watch, my brothers and sisters. I want to bring to your attention our electric grid, waterways, freshwater systems, wastewater systems, roadways, railways that are deteriorating, have been deteriorating for decades now. There's a site, www.infrastructurereportcard.org, and I'm saying infra, I-N-F-R-A, structurereportcard.org. This site provides somewhat of a report card and clues regarding the conditions of our infrastructure within the borders of the United States. I assure you these conditions and worse exist across the planet. The United States is not the only nation facing these conditions. Pray, my brothers and sisters. Much is unfolding as the wrath of the Almighty Father is gradually being unleashed. His vengeance has begun. But know this, the scriptures tell us that we are not appointed to his wrath. This refers to the children of obedience. This refers to those who have been chosen by him to fulfill the final exodus. Those who have and will receive orders to die for Yahushua's name, and those who will die before witnessing such. These three individuals, these three groups or categories of individuals will not face the wrath of the Almighty Father, but to the rebellious, the falling away, the disobedient, a different end awaits. My brothers and sisters, back to the infrastructure, the report card. There are some things emerging, and all of these play a vital role in end-time prophecy. Why? Because as it is written, the fruit of man's wickedness will come. It is said, we reap what we sow. Why are these things happening? Because many of us fail to realize that the scriptures speak of drought, but we don't think about the fallout. What would happen in massive drought during this day and age? My brothers and sisters, look around. Next time you step outside a building, if you are west of the Mississippi in the United States, or if you are in a drought-stricken area, look around the sides of the building. Look around the curves. Look at the sidewalks and streets. I assure you, you will find cracks. You will even see space and gaps beginning to become widespread over time around buildings and structures. Who is able to realize that even the towers, the skyscrapers that are built, the materials of which they have been built, are facing weathering conditions, and soon will begin to crumble? Yes, there's like a sleeping giant, but every stone will come to the ground, my brothers and sisters, in the coming days. And it will not just be by war or comets, but it will be due also to weathering conditions. Crumbling buildings are ahead. Soon and very soon there will be a multitude of conditions and events that will cause a sense of urgency to draw to the Most High Father for those who pursue set apartness. My brothers and sisters, I submit to you, record-breaking heat, record-breaking rains, prolonged drought, along with human factors, are posing significant challenges for man's survival. I have mentioned that there are echoes of communication stating that man is on a collision course to total extinction. Remember, it is written in scriptures that we will put off the corruptible and put on the incorruptible. My brothers and sisters, though you may not see the relevance of these words as it relates to the title of this segment, let me assure you, we cannot neglect things continually are unraveling. We cannot neglect that in a prolonged drought, that there will be fallout, that it will have an effect beyond just us having fresh water and food. Pray and watch. Weathering conditions, crumbling structures will prove to begin to become clear and will contribute towards us becoming humble and seeking the face of the Almighty Father like never before. Again, we probably all agree that there will be drought, but have not given thought to the fallout of prolonged drought. Or all we think about is just lack of fresh water, maybe food shortages, but fail to realize how prolonged extreme heat begin to cause the very soil that buildings are constructed to become brittle, to crack open. Be alert, my brothers and sisters, for soon and very soon we will begin to witness crumbling structures, from buildings to roadways to bridges, fresh water systems failing us, wastewater systems collapsing, the electric grid unable to deliver the electricity that we've come so accustomed to having within our homes. And believe it or not, the distribution systems, the methods in which food and other resources are delivered to us will collapse due to infrastructure failures. Everything we need, from fresh water, food, to basic supplies and resources, will become difficult to get as we begin to witness crumbling structures, from buildings to roadways to railways. As I said, my brothers and sisters, from buildings to infrastructure, distribution channels are about to collapse like man has never before witnessed. And remember, we are instructed to be mindful of the signs of the times. My brothers and sisters, it is not about fear-mongering, It is not about trying to instill fear or make you be afraid. For the scriptures inform us to be mindful of the signs of the times. And there are realities that we fail to realize. If the Most High Father states in scripture, which he does, that vengeance is mine, says the Almighty One, what is the face of that vengeance? And if we are already resurrected with Yahushua Messiah, then what need is us to witness him fulfill that promise? I assure you, before the physical return of Yahushua Messiah, we will witness the Most High Father's promises come to fulfillment regarding vengeance is mine. We will also witness his wrath begin to unfold, and we will witness all that is described in end-time prophecies. The reality of scriptures come with many severe and complex things that are extremely real. So, again, I am not trying to instill fear of what man can do, but fear Yahuwah. For the promises he hath made, he will indeed keep. Fear Yahuwah, for it is the beginning of knowledge, the beginning of wisdom. And we will discover comfort in knowing that the plan of the Almighty Father is unfolding before our very eyes. My brothers and sisters, if you doubt this, if you doubt weathering conditions are causing crumbling structures, let's get a little bit more close. Who have heard about potholes, how they damage the vehicles or result in major accidents as people try to dodge or avoid hitting them? Have you heard of poor railroad tracks damaging vehicles as they cross the tracks? Are you aware that there have been an uptick in train derailments? And I'm not referring to the tragedy that just recently happened in Pennsylvania. And my prayers go out for the families of the hurt and those who died. I'm referring to freight trains. There have been more freight trains derailing, some with toxic chemicals, disrupting the lives of many. Who is aware that the infrastructure of our rail systems are beginning to crumble? Though many of us may ignore these conditions because it's not happening in our neighborhood, I assure you there are those who have been in the path of such destruction who were humbled. Pray and watch, my brothers and sisters. There is much ahead of us. There is much work to do. Yasharal will emerge an awakening nation. Pray and watch. Most of us have never given thought to crumbling structures, to weathering conditions, but that doesn't mean that they are not occurring. My brothers and sisters, there is much more to cover on this subject. I will pause right here in part 1 and invite you to continue listening in as we move to part 2 of Weathering Conditions, Crumbling Structures. Stay tuned, my brothers and sisters, as we move to part 2 of this multi-part segment. Shalom. Shalom. Shalom.